Welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're going to try to unravel the mysteries of Bob Camblin. He's an American artist who, uh, well, despite having a pretty prominent presence in like the 1970s Houston art scene, still remains kind of an enigma.
Yeah, and to add to the mystery, a lot of Camblin's art was like intentionally hidden,
Yeah.
only to be rediscovered years later.
Talk about intrigue. So for this deep dive, we're going to be using a few key sources. Excerpts from Camblin's Wikipedia page, a YouTube video that really focuses on his painting Cape Perpetua. And then we've got some snippets from two books on Zen and art. Are you ready?
Absolutely, let's dive in.
Okay, great. Let's start with Camblin's early life and his artistic journey. Now, he was born in Oklahoma to artist parents, so it seems like creativity was kind of ingrained in him from the start.
Right from the beginning. He received formal training at the Kansas City Art Institute and even earned a Fulbright fellowship to study in Italy.
Italy. That's got to be a huge influence. I mean, specifically Venice, exposing him to the avant-garde art movement, the one that rejected like all the traditional artistic norms in favor of experimentation and innovation. Makes me wonder, did this experience like spark his interest in pushing boundaries?
It seems that way. Camblin's time in Europe definitely shaped his artistic direction. You can see it in his later work. And he further embraced kind of the unconventional by creating these playful artistic personas like Anonymous Bosch and Mr. Peanut.
Anonymous Bosch and Mr. Peanut, what a range. It's like he was playing with our expectations before we even saw the art itself. And then woven into all of this was a career in teaching.
Yes. Camblin taught at some pretty prestigious institutions, the Ringling School of Art, the University of Illinois, Detroit, Utah, and even Rice University right here in Texas. This dedication to education, it really speaks to a desire to share his knowledge and his passion for art with other people.
It's a really fascinating dynamic, isn't it? This interplay between like creating art and teaching art. Do you think these two aspects of his life influenced each other?
Oh, most definitely. And this brings us to another key aspect of Camlin's approach to art, collaboration. In 1968, he partnered up with this artist named Earl Staley. And together they just plunged headfirst into this world of collaborative art, creating these group exhibitions and these really thought-provoking sculptures that were often inspired by Daddyism.
Okay, now we're getting into some art history. For those who might be unfamiliar, Daddyism was this movement that emerged during World War I as a reaction to the horrors of war and kind of the perceived absurdity of modern society.
Hmm.
They rejected logic and reason, embracing chaos and irrationality.
Exactly. And you can see like echoes of this daddyist spirit in Camblin and Staley's collaborative works, where they challenged the traditional notions of art and encouraged audiences to question everything they thought they knew.
So we have this foundation of formal training, avant-garde influence, a dash of daddyist rebellion. It feels like all of these elements culminated in the development of his unique artistic technique, Musha volantes, back in 1980.
Musha volantes translates to flying flies and refers to those tiny specks or threads we sometimes see floating in our field of vision. Camblin used this phenomenon as inspiration for a technique that blurs the lines between abstract and reality, utilizing optical illusions to create these new perceptions from familiar objects.
It's like he was pulling inspiration from both the internal and external worlds, merging the subjective experience of sight with like a manipulation of objective forms. Do we see this technique in Cape Perpetua?
Absolutely, and this is where things get really interesting. The YouTube video we have interprets Cape Perpetua through the lens of Zen Buddhism, specifically the concept of impermanence, or mujo, which basically asserts that everything is in a constant state of change.
I'm already captivated. So how do they connect this concept of impermanence to the visual elements of Cape Perpetua?
Okay, so picture this. Jagged mountain silhouettes rising from a really turbulent ocean, and the sky above is just a maelstrom of light and dark hues. The video suggests that this stormy sea and sky represent like the uncertainties that we all face in life, this constant ebb and flow of challenges and change.
And the mountains, I'm guessing those offer a contrasting symbol.
Exactly, the mountains, solid and unwavering. They symbolize the inner stability we need to kind of weather those storms of life. Like they represent a grounding force amidst all the chaos, an internal compass guiding us through all the uncertainties.
So there's this really fascinating interplay between the chaos and the calm, the external turmoil and the internal resilience. It's as if Camblin is urging us to find that inner stillness even when we're surrounded by chaos.
Precisely. And it's further emphasized through the interplay of light and shadow. The video interprets this as an invitation to mindfulness, to observe all the chaos without judgment, and just find a sense of peace in the simple act of witnessing the ever-changing nature of life.
Now that you mention mindfulness, the YouTube video also draws a connection to Ken, the 29th hexagram from the I Ching, which symbolizes confronting and overcoming challenges.
Yeah, it's an interesting parallel. The I Ching, much like Zen Buddhism, emphasizes the cyclical nature of life, this understanding that challenges aren't meant to be avoided, but rather embraced as opportunities for growth and transformation.
So we have Zen principles, the I Ching. This one painting is already sparking a whirlwind of interpretations, and we haven't even touched on the insights from those two books you mentioned.
We'll dive into those in a bit. In the meantime, think about what resonates most with you in Cape Perpetua. What do you see in the swirling chaos and the steadfast mountains?
Welcome back. We've been exploring the life and work of Bob Camblin, an artist who seems to have thrived on challenging norms and expectations. Before we left off, we asked you what resonates most with you in Cape Perpetua.
Yeah, the interplay of like chaos and stability, the symbolism of the mountains and the sea, these elements just seem to evoke really personal responses from people.
It's true. And while Cape Perpetua offers a pretty captivating glimpse into Camblin's artistry, there's so much more to uncover. His career was marked by numerous exhibitions and collaborations, and each one kind of contributes to his legacy.
Oh, yeah. One significant exhibition was Fresh Paint, the Houston School, back in 1985. And get this, Camblin was the only artist featured who didn't have a written statement accompanying his work.
Wow, that's a bold choice.
Yeah.
It almost feels like a challenge, you know,
Right.
like daring the viewer to interpret the work without any external guidance.
Right. It emphasizes the importance of individual interpretation in art. He seems to have trusted that his work could speak for itself, allowing viewers to connect with it on a purely visual and emotional level.
Speaking of connections, his collaborations really stand out, especially with Earl Staley. Their shared passion for Dadaism led to some pretty fascinating projects.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, Dadaism embraced the absurd and challenged conventional thinking.
Totally. They created unconventional sculptures, mind-bending installations, even events that blurred the lines between art and life. You know, Dadaism's core principles were rejecting logic and reason and embracing chaos and irrationality. This wasn't just about creating art, it was about disrupting the status quo.
It was about provoking thought,
Yeah.
challenging perceptions,
Right.
almost a form of artistic rebellion against the established norms. Their work must have generated quite a reaction.
Oh, I bet. Imagine attending one of their exhibitions back in the 1970s, at a time when the art world was still heavily influenced by abstract expressionism and pop art. Their Dadaist approach with its embrace of absurdity and nonsense, it would stood out dramatically.
It really makes you wonder how audiences reacted to such a radical departure from the familiar. Was it seen as revolutionary? Or even, like, offensive to some people?
Yeah. It's likely they encountered a mixed response. Some embracing the challenge to their perceptions while others just completely rejected it because of the perceived chaos and lack of traditional beauty. But that's often the mark of truly groundbreaking art. It sparks debate, it pushes boundaries, and it forces us to reevaluate our own assumptions about the world.
Absolutely. And while Cape Perpetua may not explicitly scream Dadaism, I can definitely see how those elements of challenging norms and disrupting expectations are kind of woven into the very fabric of Camblin's artistic approach.
Precisely. And this brings us to some of his other notable works. One that stands out is Big Al, Electric Age, a piece that exemplifies his mastery of the Muses Volantes technique. That blurring of abstract and reality we discussed earlier.
It's almost like he's playing with our perception, making us question what's real and what's imagined. It seems like a really natural progression from his Dadaist roots, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Dadaism really emphasized the breakdown of traditional boundaries, and that's precisely what Camblin achieves with Muses Volantes. He takes familiar objects and he transforms them into something entirely new, something unexpected.
Another piece that's often mentioned is the marionette. This one was created earlier in his career, and it seems to delve into some deeper philosophical themes, reflecting on existentialism and maybe even his Catholic upbringing.
Yeah, the marionette offers a fascinating glimpse into the evolution of Camblin's artistic vision. While his later works often embraced playfulness and absurdity, the marionette suggests that he was grappling with these larger questions about human existence, the nature of free will.
It's this very range from playful Dadaist collaborations to introspective explorations of existentialism that makes Camblin such a captivating figure. And then there's that added layer of mystery surrounding his hidden art. We know that art historian Sandra Jensen Rowland has suggested that Camblin intentionally left clues and ciphers within his art. It's like he's inviting us on a treasure hunt.
Yeah, it definitely adds to the intrigue. Imagine just stumbling upon one of his hidden masterpieces. Wouldn't that be incredible?
Totally. It would be like unearthing a piece of art history, a secret message from the artist himself. And even though Camblin passed away in 2010, the discovery of these hidden works keeps his legacy alive. You know, it allows us to engage with his art in these new and unexpected ways.
It's like his art continues to evolve and surprise us even after his death. And this brings us back to Cape Perpetua. Remember, we asked you to imagine yourself standing on that shore, feeling the wind and the spray of the ocean.
And to try and describe that experience to someone who couldn't see the painting, it's a challenging task, isn't it?
It is. But that challenge is what makes art so powerful. It allows us to experience and express emotions and ideas that often defy simple explanation.
And Cape Perpetua, with its turbulent ocean and steadfast mountains, really seems to embody that very idea, this tension between chaos and stability, the constant change and the enduring presence.
It's like Camblin, through his art, is urging us to find that delicate balance within ourselves, to embrace the impermanence of life while also cultivating this inner strength that allows us to weather any storm.
So as we begin to wrap up our deep dive into the world of Bob Camblin, we'd like to leave you with that final thought. Imagine standing on the shore, feeling the wind and spray, and consider, what words would you use to convey that experience to someone who can't see the painting?
What would you say to capture the raw energy of the storm, the steadfastness of the mountains, the interplay of light and shadow? Let that image linger in your mind as you navigate the ever-changing landscape of your own life.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the life and art of Bob Camblin. We've been on quite a journey, haven't we? From Oklahoma to Italy, from these playful daddiest collaborations to these thought-provoking explorations of existentialism.
It's amazing how one artist can encompass such a huge range of styles and ideas.
It really is. Yeah. And Cape Perpetua, with its turbulent seascape and those enduring mountains, has become such a focal point for our conversation. Before the break, we asked you to imagine standing on that shore, feeling the wind and the spray, and to consider how you describe that experience to someone who couldn't actually see the painting.
Yeah, it's a challenge that really forces us to engage with art on a much deeper level, to try to translate these visual sensations into words.
It's like we're trying to capture the essence of the artwork, the emotions it evokes, through language. Did you have any thoughts on how you might describe that experience?
I kept thinking about contrasts, the way the swirling chaos of the storm is juxtaposed against the stillness of the mountains. Like nature itself is engaged in this really delicate dance between destruction and creation.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And that sense of contrast is echoed in the way Camblin uses light and shadow. The darkness of the storm clouds against those bursts of light breaking through, illuminating the crashing waves.
It's almost as if he's reminding us that even in the darkest times, there are always these glimmers of hope. These moments of beauty that pierce through all the chaos.
And then there's the sheer power of the ocean, that feeling of vastness, of being dwarfed by the immensity of nature.
Yeah, and yet there's this strange sense of calm that emerges from that vastness. It's like the ocean in all of its turbulence is inviting us to just surrender to those forces beyond our control.
And the mountains rising up from the sea seem to embody that very act of surrender. A steadfast presence amidst the ever-changing tides.
Yeah, they stand as this reminder that even as everything around us shifts and changes, there's this core within us that remains constant, a source of strength and resilience we can always tap into.
It's like Camblin, through his art, is urging us to find that inner mountain within ourselves, to cultivate that sense of grounding amidst the inevitable storms of life.
And that's maybe the most profound takeaway from Cape Perpetua. It's not just a painting of a stormy seascape, it's a reflection on the human experience, on our capacity to find peace and strength, even when faced with all this uncertainty and change.
So as we conclude this deep dive into the world of Bob Camblin, we hope you'll carry that message with you. Embrace the ever-changing nature of life. Find beauty in the unexpected, and cultivate that inner stillness that allows you to weather any storm.
And remember, art isn't just something to be observed from a distance. It's an invitation to engage, to question, to feel, and to discover your own unique interpretation.
So go out there, explore the world of art with an open mind and a curious heart. You never know what hidden treasures you might uncover.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time.